Okay, welcome to the briefing, Sierra Club Pennsylvania's live legislative update series. We haven't had one of these in a bit because there's no state budget and the federal government shut down. But we are coming to you today with just one session. This is not the start of a weekly series, as far as I know right now. So right now it's just today. As usual, you'll get a recording and the slides after this session. I am also dropping the link in the chat to the briefing digest, which is our notes document. So when you hear action items, when you hear references to things that you can do, you can go to the briefing digest and click through all of those links. My name is Melissa, she, her pronouns. I'm the senior distributed organizer for Sierra Club Pennsylvania, and I facilitate this series. You're mostly going to hear tonight from Jen Quinn, our legislative political director, and also from Nate Regal, our clean energy program advocate. And so with that, I will pass it over to Jen.
Thank you, Melissa. Welcome back, everyone. I think the last time we hosted the briefing, I said it was mid-July. I said something like, hopefully we'll meet in 2 weeks and we can do a budget recap. Well, I'm sure as everybody knows, there is no budget yet. But things are changing rapidly. As what typically happens in Harrisburg, nothing happens and then everything happens at the same time. So I did these slides last week, and of course, things have changed a bit. So yeah, still a lot of questions about the state budget. We don't really know, what the bargaining is, what the trades are. A lot of the delays in the state budget have to do with dysfunction among Senate Republicans. President Pro Tem Kim Ward and Leader Pittman, they don't really communicate very well. They have different factions in the caucus. You have the Freedom Caucus folks who don't want to vote for anything. And so just getting a majority of Republicans to vote yes on budget language is proving very difficult. And it's also a governor's race next year, and anything they can do to make Governor Shapiro look bad, they're willing to do. And so what we saw over the past few weeks, the House passed Senate Bill 160 earlier this month. This was not agreed to. It was them saying, we're going to put this out here and see what the Senate says. The Senate says this is garbage. We don't like it. We did see a really troubling cut to DCNR's budget, 18.6%. This came from House Democrats. Again, we do not want to see that coming from House Democrats, but we did, probably to keep the overall spend number down, but cutting DCNR's budget is not the way to do that. The cut would be backfilled by oil and gas lease fund money, but again, that's not something we want to be doing. I think last week the Senate passed another version of Senate Bill 160 and kicked it back to the House. Again, not agreed to, just them putting something out there. There are no new funding sources, no taxes on skills games or marijuana, so deeply problematic. What has happened today within the past few hours, we are hearing rumors that RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, something that Sierra Club fully supports, we've been working on for many years. It's at the Supreme Court now. They will determine if we can officially join RGGI, but this is possibly a trade for a budget deal. It could just be a big spend number. It can be more money for education. We don't know. We're hearing that it's very likely that RGGI is on the table. Very troubling. We are going to urge folks to not make this sort of trade. In the briefing notes, which folks will get afterwards, there is a call-in script. We're going to ask everyone, please call your state rep, your state senator as soon as possible. Read the script, leave a voicemail after hours and just ask them to not trade RGGI away for a budget deal. That is not an acceptable trade. Again, it is still a rumor. There are lots of rumors, but we've been hearing them all day. So there are a lot of reasons to be concerned there. So I'm almost forgetting, the rumor is also that they could possibly pass the budget as soon as tomorrow or by the end of this week. So again, it's very important that folks make those calls and try to get them to realize this is not the path forward on climate policy and not a trade for a one-time budget deal. So moving on, switching gears, a little less urgent. Some of the interesting legislation we've seen, House Bill 1834, data centers, it's data centers, data centers, data centers, all day, every day in Harrisburg at this point. This bill came from Representative Matzey out in southwestern Pennsylvania. This is a bill with a very narrow scope. It focuses only on how data centers are connecting to the grid. and their consumer impacts. It does not address water usage, land usage, environmental impacts, nothing like that. But it applies to commercial data centers that are larger than 25 megawatts at peak demand. And it requires the PUC issue regulations that have financial security deposits from data centers, right? So they're not just asking for more load, asking for transmission upgrades, and then sort of withdrawing and not really building projects, but yet having impacts to the grid and costs to consumers. It also has emergency curtailment authority in there. So if it looks like our energy supply is not going to meet peak demand, these data centers could be curtailed, essentially powering down or lowering the amount of power they're using to keep the rest of us from experiencing blackouts. And then it also explicitly bans costs that are attributable to data centers onto retail customers. And it establishes a fund, a certain base. We're not really sure. We're working with Rep. Matzie's office on how this fee would be structured. But data centers would have to pay a certain fee based on this yet unknown structure into a fund for LIHEAP. Folks are probably aware there have been cuts of the federal government to LIHEAP. This is a low income heating assistance program. So data centers would at least be contributing to this new fund. There's also a 25% renewable energy requirement for data centers. We know that's a low number. We're working on getting that better. And we are expecting some amendments to this bill to come out probably later this year. And I've heard that this bill will probably get a committee vote early next year. But if folks have thoughts or amendments for this, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to hear your thoughts on how to make this bill better. And then again, as I said, more data centers, more data center legislation. We only have co-sponsor memos now, but we did see 6 co-sponsor memos introduced, I think, October 14th. One is community standards for data centers. I don't know exactly what that means. It looks like directing municipalities to do certain things there. Data center emergency preparedness, requiring prevailing wage for folks working at data centers, accountability and transparency. Data centers would have to reveal their energy and water usage, energy efficiency standards for data centers so they use less energy, and then a water usage reporting requirement for data centers. And this link here will take you to all of these co-sponsor memos, and it will also take you to all of the legislation that's been introduced around data centers this session. There's a ton, but these 6 co-sponsor memos, which will eventually become legislation, are most likely going to be lumped in with House Bill 1834, which I talked about on the former slide, as a large omnibus data center package that will hopefully be passed sometime next summer to deal with the data center boom that's going to be impacting Pennsylvania. Melissa, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. If folks want to hear even more about data centers, I hope you will join us tomorrow night for our Halloween-themed Dawn of the Data Centers Clean Energy for All webinar. So we will be unpacking all of this um, uh, to the extent that it's possible in an hour. So if you haven't already registered, please check it out. Yeah, we'll try and make it fun and Halloween themed and dorky like that. So
Sounds amazing. Thank you. And then I'm just going to flag a couple other bills. SB 6 and SB 1068, they were both passed, I think, last week. SB 6, we've talked about these sorts of bills many times on the briefing. These are the reg review or reg reform bills that we see every session. This would require third-party permitting. It would make permits deemed approved. This is something that is really all about limiting DEP's authority and sort of expediting permit approval because in some folks' minds, that's the most important thing we can do. So that passed the Senate 2822. It's sitting in the House. May also get tied up in the budget. We really hope not. But again, we've seen this sort of stuff many, many years. And then SB 1068, this would repeal Reggie. They call it an abrogation bill. It's 2 sentences that says, the state will no longer participate in Reggie. This passed the Senate 33-17. We had 6 Democrats voting yes for that. So that was deeply troubling. And then again, with an outstanding budget, there are very significant concerns that this could be amended into a code bill. as part of a budget deal, and Reggie would be repealed. And then two interesting bills that we saw introduced. House Bill 1260, an actual good bill, a little bit of good news. This would require warehouses that we're seeing pop up everywhere and have been for many years to be constructed so that they're solar ready. You can put solar on the roofs. It makes perfect sense. And then we also have seen House Bill 1556, which would incentivize clean manufacturing. So things like clean steel, aluminum, glass, electric grid modernization, something that the state should probably be supporting. So again, happy to see a couple good bills. And there are a few more draft bills out there that we've seen that we're really excited about. And once those are officially introduced, we'll talk about those a bit more, but not a lot happening on the legislative front, just given the gridlock with the budget and the summer. And then something we've talked about many, many times, House Bill 501 Press, which updates our sort of clean energy standard, and House Bill 502, this is the siting legislation as part of the governor's lightning plan. We were hoping that maybe they would gain some traction this fall and get a vote, but with the budget still being outstanding and it's almost November, nothing substantial has been moving. We are not expecting these bills to really go anywhere this fall. Now, again, next year is always an option, but we'll be keeping an eye on these. We'll still be pushing for press and an amended version of House Bill 502 to hopefully get across the finish line, but nothing to report here, unfortunately, because again, the budget has just been taking up all of the oxygen. And then just to remind folks that, there were some good bills that did pass the House, either back earlier this year or a little more recently, that folks can sort of take action on and contact their senators. So one is House Bill 1261. This bans PFAS-containing firefighting foam. It passed unanimously in the House. There's a nearly identical version in the Senate, SB 980. We would love to see that passed. It can get kicked back to the House and then, signed by the governor. Folks should also remember House Bill 1155, community solar, passed the House. It is stuck in the Senate. A good bill. We can still get this done before the end of next year. And then House Bill 441. So currently terrestrial income, I almost said incomes, terrestrial insects in Pennsylvania are sort of orphaned and they have no agency that sort of oversees them. And so this bill closes that gap by assigning native insects to DCNR. Passed the House and it's now in Senate ERE. We'd also love to see that come out of committee and be considered by the Senate. And then some committee meetings coming up. A few days ago, the Energy Committee had a hearing on House Bill 1834, the data center bill I mentioned earlier. This link will take you to a recording of that. Super interesting. If you have time, please take the time to watch that. There are some very interesting opinions there on a lot of things, but Chair Fiedler did an excellent job on that hearing. They're also having another hearing tomorrow on House Bill 1539, which is on an electric bus grant program, electric school bus grant program. And then we have the Environmental Committee holding a hearing on the proposed LNG export terminal down in Chester in early November. And the Democratic Policy Committee is also having a hearing on residential water wells. Folks know there are no real water well standards for wells in Pennsylvania. This is an ongoing problem. Folks will be talking about it again. There is a draft bill out there. So I have a feeling that this committee meeting is directly related to that draft bill, which will probably be introduced sometime soon. And then session days this week, is almost done. Tomorrow is the 29th. We may have a few more days scheduled this week if they really truly do want to get a budget done. If they don't do it tomorrow, it might be, the 30th and the 31st. Then they're gone until November 17th. I have a feeling that the 15th, 16th, and 17th of December will be canceled. Folks do not like to be in Harrisburg that close to the December holidays. So not a lot of time to get anything done. Senate has a very similar calendar, but do keep in mind that we have a 2-year legislative session in Pennsylvania. So all the bills that we've been talking about, all the bills that are introduced, they will still be relevant next year. They will be in play until the end of 2026. So we still have a lot of time to work on all of our priority legislation. And then these next two slides are just dealing with the Supreme Court retention race, shifting gears to the political side. I'm sure everyone is aware of this, but we really just wanted to put it on folks' radar and urge everyone to go vote. This will be a low turnout election. It's not a presidential race. It's not a gubernatorial race. So we really want to focus on turning out Sierra Club members because your vote will be really impactful. Why the court matters. It's an important backstop on so many issues, including multiple environmental issues. I mentioned Reggie before. The Supreme Court is still deliberating this, and we need good justices on the court to hopefully support Reggie. But again, we know there's a lot of money being invested on the other side to flip these seats, and we don't want to have that happen. I think that's my last slide. Yep. Somebody else is talking about PJM.
All right, that's me. Uh, so I think we're all very well aware that, uh-oh, something just happened. We're not at PJM anymore. Okay. Um, that the electricity rates are increasing, and PJM is the regional transmission operator, that organization that transmits the electricity to all of the electric companies that we pay our bills to. Well, if you want to learn more, there's a webinar that you can watch, The Price is Wrong, that we did a little while back. But what came out of that is we have two action items. You can click on that link, and we have a letter that goes to Governor Shapiro. It starts with thanking him because he has been active in pushing back against PJM, but also asks him to do more. And those three bullet points there, just basically keep up the good work and don't quit yet. The other one is in support of House Bill 1599, which is the PJM transparency bill that would require any voting member of PJM in Pennsylvania to disclose how they voted and how their vote is in the best interest of consumers. So that did pass the House. It's in the Senate. So if you click on that link, it's basically contact your state senator in support of that House bill.
Okay, and federal stuff is me. So we've got two opportunities for folks to make some important public comments to the EPA. First off, so they have proposed eliminating the greenhouse gas reporting program, which is an important source of data collection about greenhouse gases, right? Without data, we don't know how much climate pollution is being created and who is creating it. So, along with all of the other egregious things that the EPA has proposed lately, this is just another step backwards. So public comments are open until November 3rd. So that is Monday. Yeah, so we are running out of time. Please use that link to submit your public comment, as these links will all be in the briefing digest. Next slide. And then the second public comment period we're looking at is from the Bureau of Land Management. They are attempting to rescind the public lands rule. That rule finalized in 2024 made clear that conservation is an essential use of BLM managed lands. So that public comment period is open until the 10th. So you have a whole extra week to weigh in on that one. But I'd say you might as well submit both your public comments tonight, right now, after you get the notes. So yeah, we'd appreciate you all going in and submit those public comments. I recognize that the situation at the federal level feels really, dire, maybe hopeless, but we have to keep pushing back, speaking up, and not just, accepting these things that are happening. So, thank you all for everything that you've done and will be doing related to public comments in the future. Next slide. Our action alert page, everything that we talked about is on this list and more. You can always keep tabs on our action alerts by bookmarking act.sierraclub.org/actions/Pennsylvania. Or you can click through this slide and make sure that you have taken all of the many actions that we have for you to take. Next slide. And then our chapter advocacy team is meeting on November 6th at 6 o'clock. If you enjoy advocacy work, if you want to do more of this, please join us. It is virtual, it is statewide. We do a lot of rapid response. We do a lot of engagement on all of the topics that we've been talking about tonight, both the state and federal level. So I hope to see some of y'all on November 6th as well. And next slide. And that's it. Okay, so we can close the slide deck and we have some time for questions. I did see that Bill put a question in the chat. It says, will data centers that start before this bill be grandfathered not to have to meet the requirements? That was back at 510, so hopefully Jen knows which Bill is referring to.
Yeah, it's probably House Bill 1834. I'm assuming that yes, be they won't have to meet the requirements. I haven't looked at the legislation in a little while, and a lot has happened since, but I'm fairly certain it wouldn't be retroactive.
Okay, and I see Robin's hand.
Thanks. I just want to ask, do we have or will we be developing a sort of a threshold set of requirements related to data centers? Like, what do we have to see in legislation in order for us to support, or what are poison pills for us?
I don't know if the chapter is doing that specifically, so we did a lot of work with the Clean Power Plan to develop something very similar to that I can share once it's finalized. I know National Sierra Club has a lot of stuff on data centers that I am just not familiar with. As far as House Bill 1834, Nate, Tom, and I have just been working closely with legislative staff on what we want to see in that bill specifically, but that gets very granular very quickly. It's not high level. It's, very specific things. So, yeah, I just don't see the chapter developing a data center principles document anytime soon. We're just focusing on a lot of legislation, but I can talk to Tom about it and see if we just want to like share the coalitions that we're a part of that have their own principles documents.
All right. And Christine asked, what could Democrats trade instead of Reggie? I feel it's important to make a constructive suggestion.
That's a question we've been asking ourselves all day. Um, I mean, I think it depends on how you look at it. There are some folks who think it's non-negotiable, right, when it comes to the carbon reductions that Reggie offers. Um, some of the folks we work with think that the Lightning Plan is an acceptable trade. We as Sierra Club can't say officially because we're still working on it, but I think asking for the moon, right, like the Lightning Plan, that's something that we would kind of be okay with. But again, we don't really want to put out there that we want to make this trade. Like we want the governor to not trade Reggie away. But if he is going to make a trade, then it has to be something big. Like it would have to be the Lightning Plan plus, state methane regulations, plus whole home repairs, plus something else. So I appreciate that question. I think it's very realistic. It's just a enormous question that every suggestion just sort of opens a can of worms. So Christina, if there's something that you want to suggest, like absolutely go for it. If you make a call, I just can't really advise at this point because it's happened so fast. And yeah, I think I just got off a call before this one and we have a list of like 20 things that we would like to see. And it's like everything under the sun from PJM to press to solar warehouses to data centers to everything. So yeah, it's a tough situation, but feel free to ask for the moon.
All right. And Thomas has his hand raised as well as has a question in the chat. So I'll just let him speak that out loud if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, I put it in there just because there's a couple of links, but just wondering if there's any thought around seasonal electricity rates. It's kind of an off topic, but it's related to the data centers and also decarbonization by encouraging heat pumps and electrification. Has that been something that anybody's heard anything about in PA?
I mean, do you mean like having capacity markets during different times of the year?
No, like Massachusetts and Colorado are proposing a lower rate for electrified customers during the winter, essentially, to encourage electrification of heating. So it's a decarbonization pathway, essentially.
I have not
And it,
heard any proposals like that in Pennsylvania. I know there's conversations with the PJM capacity auctions to do the more seasonal. I mean, Nate, have you heard anything about this generally or more specifically?
No, the only thing I'm aware of in Pennsylvania would be like the grant programs that DEP has for
right.
efficiency. I'm not aware of. I like that. I wasn't aware of what Massachusetts is doing, so I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, our politics are very, very far from Massachusetts
I
and
I
Colorado,
get
but
it.
it's super interesting. Thank you for the links. We will definitely look into it, but I would be doubtful to see something like that.
All right, and I see Mike's hand.
Okay, thank you. Representative Jared Solomon from the Philadelphia area introduced a House Bill 1502 that I believe is in the Transportation Committee. Uh, you guys aware of it? Anything you can do to move it out of the committee, or at least a committee hearing to raise awareness, discussion? It's based on the New York Sleep Act, which actually got passed, which raises fines and enforcement for illegally modified mufflers from motor vehicles.
I mean, I would personally support that. I don't think Sierra Club has an official chapter stance on that, and I doubt it would be a priority for us. But I've worked with Chair Solomon on the PFAS bill. He's fantastic. I just don't see it being a priority for the chapter at this point.
How does and who decides what the chapter puts as a priority?
Sure. So staff and volunteers sort of determine that on certain things. It's very clear cut, that what we decide, like Nate or I will see something that falls in line with national priorities. And then when there are questions where we're not really clear, we usually present to our board and there's a vote taken on what the chapter should prioritize. And it also has to do with resources, right? If we have funding, we can't just work on bills that we have zero funding for.
All right, do we have any other questions? We have about a minute left. All right, then I think we can wrap for the night. I hope to see all of you tomorrow night for Dawn of the Data Centers. Register just to receive the recording. I'll be getting these briefing resources out to you within the hour as soon as the video processes. I want to make sure that you get the script so you can call in about Reggie tonight, leave your voicemail, or do it first thing in the morning. Yeah, so thanks everyone. Stay tuned. Have a good evening.